There is a lot of noise right now around Halo Campaign Evolved, not just because of the rumored release timing, but because of the conversation that is already split into two extremes. On one side, you have people saying a summer release makes no sense for Halo. On the other, you have people acting like if it launches in July, then that must mean Halo Studios is rushing out an unfinished product. And I think both reactions are missing something very important, because the real question is not just when this game may be releasing. The real question is what kind of Halo release is it going to actually be? First, let's separate the official information from what is considered rumor. Officially, Halo Campaign Evolved is listed as a 2026 release. Halo Studios has described it as a ground-up Unreal Engine 5 remake of the original Halo Combat Evolved campaign, with 3 new prequel missions, expanded gameplay, 2-player split screen on console, and up to 4-player online co-op. What has not been officially confirmed is the rumored July release date. The part that comes from insider reporting, and more specifically the coded post from grunt.api that many of the community decoded as early access being on July 23rd, official release on July 28th. Now, because that date is not official yet, skepticism is fair, but skepticism and dismissal are not really the same thing now, are they? The concern from the community is, as a matter of fact, understandable. Halo fans have been burned before. I mean, we've seen delays. We've seen launches that needed way more time. We've seen situations where the community said, well, this doesn't look ready, and then later felt proven right when pretty much they were. So when people look at a rumored July launch and say, well, that feels a little fast, I don't really think they're just doom posting like everyone else tries to say they are. I think that it is a community responding based on memory. And frankly, Halo has kind of earned that scrutiny. So no, I don't think that this concern should be mocked because honestly, they are real. They are grounded, and they have come from a long history of experience. But here's where I think the conversation starts to lose the plot. People are talking about Halo Campaign Evolved like it's a full-spectrum Halo release on scale with, I guess you could say, like Halo 4, Halo 5, and maybe Halo Infinite. And if the current reporting is accurate, it simply isn't. This appears to be a campaign-focused remake that has co-op support, and it does not have a full PvP platform release. Halo's official materials describe it as a rebuilt campaign package with expanded missions, new enemies, new weapons and vehicles, and co-op support, but not as a full multiplayer platform relaunch. And if you think about it, that really matters a lot. If you think about it, a lot really, because once PvP multiplayer is removed from the equation, the production burden changes quite dramatically. That means there's no competitive map suite to build, there's no matchmaking infrastructure to design the entire identity of the game around, no long-term PvP weapon balancing problems, which, if you haven't realized, a lot of the problems with balancing is that the multiplayer and the campaign have to share the balancing issues. If there's no multiplayer, the balancing issues go away. There's also going to be no launch pressure tied to Forge, custom browser expectations, the ranked multiplayer system structure, or all of the other systems that now come attached to a modern Halo multiplayer package. Now, that doesn't make the game easy to build, but it absolutely makes it smaller and more controlled of a project than a full Halo release. And that is why I do not think a faster turnaround automatically equals suspicious, especially when you factor in 3 things. First, this is a remake of an already established campaign. The story is known. The major beats are known. The mission identity is known. The characters are even known. That does not mean work is not required. I mean, far from it. Work is absolutely required. But it does mean that Halo Studios is not trying to invent an entirely new mainline Halo campaign. They're not trying to make a whole new multiplayer ecosystem, and they're not trying to make a whole new live service feature all at once. Second, the game has officially been positioned as Halo Studios' first major Unreal Engine 5 project. If you're moving into a new engine, Starting with a more contained product is honestly one of the most logical decisions you can make as a studio. And no, it's not because it's risk-free, but because it's, how would you say, like more manageable? Let's say that. It's more manageable. You let the team learn the pipeline, they can establish technical standards, and they can even ship something that is recognizable before betting everything on a giant all-in production, like a new mainline Halo game. Thirdly, this project has not appeared out of nowhere. We've been hearing about this remake for, well, a long time really, and the official reveal was not the beginning of its existence. I would argue that they had several months of development in the pipeline by the time they announced it. So the idea that meaningful development time has already been invested here is not unreasonable at all. And now, there are some other concerns entering the conversation, and that would be outsourcing. More accurately, at least in the game dev world, it is called co-development. Because one of the bigger fears right now is that Halo Studios is not doing all of this work internally, and that a company called Abstraction is heavily involved in the development. And from everything currently visible, that concern is not coming out of thin air. Christopher Gaffney, whose credits include work on Halo 2, lists level and technical design work on the unreleased Halo Campaign Evolved project, and he mentions this on his LinkedIn even, including specific mention of adapting spaces around things like sprint and 4-player co-op. He is also currently working at Abstraction to my knowledge, and Abstraction itself publicly lists prior Halo co-development work on Halo Master Chief Collection, and Halo's own MCC credits include Abstraction as a credited partner. So if people are looking at that and saying, okay, well this definitely sounds like outside help, that's honestly fair reading, yeah. What I do not think is fair is that there's this immediate leap from outside help to Halo Studios is now dead, or that this game is automatically doomed, because that's not really logically how you should be following this. Modern AAA development is full of co-development. It's full of support studios, and it has a lot of external partners. And in this specific case, the outside studio people are pointing to is not just some random unknown studio that no one's heard of. It is a team that has already worked on Halo before, a team that has already contributed to the Master Chief Collection and has fixed many of the known bugs. A team that, at minimum, has prior experience touching Halo content in collaboration with 343, Halo Studios, whatever you want to call them, and even Microsoft. Now, does that mean everything is automatically fine? Well, obviously no, not at all, but it does mean that the conversation should be more mature than just outsourcing equals laziness. Because if Halo Studios is relying on outside support for like implementation while keeping the franchise direction, writing, approval, voice work, even marketing, and I guess you could say higher level production control that's in-house, it's not inherently a red flag now, is it? That can also be a resource decision if you want to really stop and think about that, especially when the project in question is a remake in a new engine with a defined campaign structure and without the overhead of launching a full PvP ecosystem again all at once. And honestly, one detail here makes me a little less cynical. If Gaffney is specifically talking about redesigning spaces around sprint in 4-player co-op, that suggests, at least to me, that there's an awareness that you cannot just drag the original 2001 spaces into a new rule set and call it done. In fact, this was something a lot of people complained about in Halo 4 and even Halo 5, that maps felt like they were for the older Halo multiplayer style, but with sprint, they just didn't mesh well. So this is the exact kind of design issue somebody would be thinking about on a remake like this. I'm no developer, I'm trying to learn, and it's definitely hard work, but this is something that even I would be thinking of if I was remaking a game. But overall, no. I do not think it should automatically be read as proof of 343 or Halo Studios' collapse. Now let's talk about some other criticism. Why would Halo be releasing in the summer? Halo is supposed to be a holiday title. I mean, historically, it has always been released near the end of the year, and that is fair point culturally. A lot of people associate Halo with the fall, November, December time. That's what I always think. And with that late year event status, yeah, a summer release does kind of feel unusual now, doesn't it? But unusual doesn't mean irrational. I mean, look at the 2026 release calendar, because it really does matter. If Xbox believes Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to dominate November, it's going to dominate the conversations, it's going to dominate the shelf space in stores, it's going to dominate social media, absolutely, no doubt about that, and it's even going to dominate player attention. And even if it flops, even if Grand Theft Auto 6 is absolutely a terrible game, it is going to have everyone's attention. So trying to avoid that blast radius is not cowardice on Halo Studios' end. It's definitely not cowardice on Microsoft end. It's just basic market awareness. If Grand Theft Auto 6 is officially targeting November 19th, 2026, like they suggest, then releasing a Halo project in the traditional end-of-year window could probably be the worst possible decision I have ever seen in marketing. And that's not to say Halo couldn't survive. It absolutely could, but it's a matter that it would be fighting for oxygen against one of the largest industry releases, arguably in history. And that doesn't prove a July plan is actually in the works. It doesn't mean that they're absolutely planning on it, but it does prove that a summer launch would have some logic behind it. There's also one more topic I think that needs to be addressed, even if it's only briefly. There are the allegations about Halo Studios itself. I mean, everyone's probably heard of this by now. In recent reporting, former staff described leadership failures, favoritism, poor treatment, and broader internal cultural problems. These are serious allegations, absolutely, and to be clear, allegations are not the same as verified legal findings, but they are serious enough that they cannot just be waved away like they're nothing. My view on this is honestly quite simple. If people are mistreated, it is wrong, full stop. It should not be happening. But I also don't think that every ugly workplace allegation automatically tells you whether or not a game like Halo Combat Evolved itself is going to be polished, well-designed, or worth playing. Because the modern AAA industry has had culture issues, leadership issues, and labor complaints across a huge number of studios over the last couple years. And I'm not trying to defend it, this is absolutely not in defense of it, but it's recognition that this problem is far larger than Halo. It's far larger than Halo Studios, it's far larger than Microsoft, if you can even believe that. So I think the honest position on it is this. Take those allegations seriously, don't try to simplify them, and do not pretend that they are unique to Halo and Microsoft alone. And do not automatically treat them as one-to-one forecast of the game's final quality. Those are related concerns, but they are not identical concerns. So where do I land on everything as a whole? I think the community is right to be cautious. I do think Halo fans have every reason to question launch timing. I think it is completely valid to say, show me the game first. I also think the outsourcing story is real enough to deserve discussion, but it's not so simplistic enough to justify the panic around it. And I think the labor allegations around Halo Studios should be taken seriously without turning every conversation about the game into a collapsed narrative. But above all, I think some of the current panic is built on treating Halo Campaign Evolved like it has a lot of the same obligations as a full PvP Halo flagship. And if this really is a campaign-focused remake that focuses on co-op, external support, and without competitive multiplayer, then arguably the scope is smaller. The moving parts are fewer and the path to release is naturally shorter. You can ask any developer this, indie or otherwise, and I'm sure they will tell you the same thing. But what they're also going to tell you is that it does not guarantee polish, it doesn't guarantee that the game is going to be quality, and it doesn't guarantee that the rumors are true. But what it does mean is quite simple. A release in July would be unusual. Heavy co-development would raise and should be raising understandable questions. Studio allegations do deserve scrutiny, especially to the higher levels, but none of those things by themselves prove that this project is doomed. So for now, I think the most reasonable position is this. Yes, be skeptical of everything you're hearing. Yes, you should be watchful of what's being done. But do not confuse different with doomed. Because if Halo Studios deliberately cut the project down to something more controlled, more focused, and more achievable, then a quicker release window may not be a warning sign. It could be a sign that they are finally going in the right direction. And that might be the entire point. Anyways, this has been Agent Michael of Halo Protocol, and I thank you for tuning in to this Directive transmission. Until the next Directive, stay ready, stay listening, and stay vigilant.